The definitive edition of Age of Empires 3 brought many surprises with it regarding game balance, and in this video I'm going to go over why I think this politician propels Dutch to a top tier 1v1 civ in the definitive edition. The logistician for the Dutch provides a number of bonuses. The first is a military wagon, which is a wagon that will quickly build either a barracks, a stable, or an artillery foundry. The reason why the military wagon is so valuable is because it builds your preferred military production building incredibly quickly. A single settler takes 30 seconds to build a barracks, a stable, or an artillery foundry. This progressively gets lower and lower the more settlers you add. Eventually, with 8 settlers, you're able to build your barracks, stable, or artillery foundry in 10 seconds. The military wagon also builds it in 10 seconds. So even though the cost of aging up is 100 food more, and will take an extra 8 seconds to gather the food required, the time is returned to the Dutch player through the speed at which the military building they choose is built. Further, as the settlers don't have to build the barracks, your precious villager seconds are returned back to you. Most people, when building the first military building, will typically task 3 settlers to complete the building. This task takes 19 seconds, and it consumes a total of 57 villager seconds. This translates to 48 food without upgrades, which means that the true cost of aging up with the logistician is much closer to around 850 food. What I want to reiterate with this politician is that it allows you to get units on the field significantly faster. That is, unless you're willing to take 8 settlers to build your military building. So while it might not seem like a lot, when you're playing at a competitive level, every second counts. And by having your military building up and running 15 to 20 seconds faster than normal, as we must account for the time it takes to gather crates, as well as the time to position your settlers appropriately, this only serves to increase your chance of surviving that devastating rush. The second point is that it comes with a halberdier. Now, I could make an hour-long video on the merits of the halberdier and whether or not it is a useful unit, but for the Dutch, every unit it can muster against a rush is going to be handy. By having the halberdier, it enables the Dutch, even though it is just one unit, it's enough to provide a buffer for the first batch or two of skirms. Let's say, hypothetically, you're playing against an Ottoman. If an Ottoman is rushing you, he's going to put down a barracks, he's going to start queuing Janissaries, and he's going to ship 3 hussars as his first card. He knows that you're Dutch, he knows you're going to be building skirmishers, so of course that's exactly what he's going to do. So the hussar are going to come in underneath the town centre. They're going to look to kill any of the skirmishers that you've spawned outside your barracks. But now, with your halberdier, there's a problem. It's going to provide this buffer. First of all, it's going to slow the cavalry by snaring them. Secondly, it has a multiplier against cavalry. And thirdly, it's a veteran halberdier. This isn't one of those toned down units that is available in the Second Age. This is a veteran halberdier who has been through all of his Fortress Age training. So it really is a significant addition. Even though it is only one halberdier, it is enough in a 1v1 to really put a lot of pain into any early game cavalry pressure you might see from your enemy. And this should enable you enough time to keep your skirms alive and allow you to get your 8 pike shipment, whether that's your 3rd shipment or your 4th shipment. When you do eventually ship 8 pikes, if that halberdier is still alive, it's going to bolster those 8 pikemen and keep the anti-cavalry squadron alive much longer. The third and final bonus that this politician provides is that it enables the veteran halberdier to be trained in the Second Age. As I mentioned in the second point, this isn't just a dulled down version of the halberdier that the Dutch can build in the Second Age. This is a fully qualified veteran halberdier, which means he's going to be picking up that extra health and that extra attack that he'd normally have to wait until Fortress Age to receive. Now, halberdiers traditionally are not units worth training. They are slow, and they are very easily picked off by enemy ranged infantry. You simply build routers, as ranged cavalry is much more flexible with both its movement speed and its ranged attack. The reason why I think that this is such a viable politician for the Dutch is that it allows them to have access to anti-cavalry units in Age 2 that don't need wood. As a Dutch player, you don't want to be chopping wood early game at all. All of your wood should be coming from your 700 wood shipment, your 600 wood shipment, and from the market. But this change enables the Dutch to have anti-cavalry without having to invest in a source of wood. So the last question before we really make a decision on the Dutch logistician is in regard to opportunity cost. Dutch typically are aiming to build a bank during the age-up transition, and then they will shift their settlers completely to food and coin so that they can maintain unit production once hitting the second age. They age up with the quartermaster and use the 400 wood for 2 houses and a military production building of their choice. But as a Dutch player, you don't need 2 houses that early. In fact, you don't even need 1 house that early. Typically, as Dutch, you're going to ship a bank wagon and then leverage that experience to ship 700 wood. You're not shipping units that require population space, so the urgency of housing is not as imminent as most other civilizations. Upon age up, you're still able to get your skirmisher in queue. You don't have to worry about wood. It really means that as a Dutch player, if you're taking the logistician, you're going to have to chop 100 wood in the early game, but it's not immediately as you arrive into the second age, which means that the most optimal build orders are going to see Dutch players who are able to build a bank, transition their villages to food, wood, and gold, queue a settler when they've aged up, queue a skirmisher when their wagon has finished building their barracks, and be able to build a house in time that when their skirmisher is just due to finish popping out of the barracks, they're able to queue the remaining 4 skirmishers and finish the batch. I do admit that I'm not particularly confident that Dutch is going to be able to consistently pull off getting a full batch of skirmishers out by taking this politician, and that the standard Dutch build order may have to change from bank wagon 700 wood to something like 700 food, 700 wood bank wagon, which will definitely enable the Dutch player to hit full batches, especially on those first 1 and 2 batches, which are the most important. By doing this, you're obviously going to sacrifice the early economy. If you don't ship the bank wagon first, you're going to be losing the equivalent of 4 settlers on coin until you do eventually ship that bank wagon. I'm definitely satisfied at this point that this politician is going to be incredibly strong for defending against rushes. But where this politician truly shines is that it fills their age 2 weakness of lackluster anti-cav. The Dutch are now able to stay in age 2 for a significant amount of time. They can build up a huge mass, they can apply pressure around the map, all while they're using the resources that they'd normally be spending on aging because they have to age because they don't have appropriate anti-cav in the second age. They can now be using those resources on their banks, which is further investment in their economy. It means that you're going to see Dutch players that continue to build absolutely massive armies in the second age, with the only real threat to them being cannons. Halberdier and skirmisher are a very potent combo. If they're up against something like musketeer and hussars, they're going to have absolutely no problem. When the cannons come, that's when the issue is. So I suspect that we're probably not going to be seeing a Dutch who sits in the second age for 14 or 15 minutes. I am anticipating that we'll most likely see a Dutch who puts out a lot of early pressure through halberdiers, enabling them to have beautiful anti-cavalry, and they're also going to be massing their banks behind it. So whether that means 5 banks and then aging up, or potentially sending the church card, getting 7 banks and aging up, this change is a huge buff to the Dutch economy because it means that they don't have to spend 2,200 resources on hitting the fortress age as soon as they'd normally have to. This can all be invested in banks. Overall, this is an incredibly solid age-up politician, and I expect that we're going to be seeing a huge amount of it against rushes and civilizations that like to fight in the second age. When the matchup is a little bit more economic focused, say games against China or Portugal, it's going to remain being more beneficial for the Dutch player to age with the quartermaster, because obviously they're not going to need to have halberdiers in the second age, because they're not going to be needing to focus on unit production, because the opposing player isn't going to be focusing on unit production early either. Overall, this is an absolutely amazing politician, and I'm satisfied that we're going to see this a huge amount in the definitive edition. If you enjoyed this video and you're looking forward to seeing more videos like this for the other 7 civilizations that I haven't covered yet, I encourage you to subscribe to the channel, as they're going to be looked at over the coming days. Thank you for watching.